Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
What up, Glenn?
Hey, brother. How are you, man? Let's get some coffee, man. Let's get.
I know. Let's pulled up into the lot this morning. I saw our engineer Brian's car, so I knew we were in good shape.
Game on, man.
Yeah, I think he's got a cot in the back here at the coffee shop. I don't think he ever goes home.
Yeah, a little behind the counter. We usually record every couple of weeks.
Yeah,
we do like 5 episodes at a time, and it's 6 a.m. Call time is 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings.
Good morning.
So there's another definition of, coffee, right?
Yeah. It's all good stuff. Coming off a couple of great episodes, we had, all our episodes are great. I mean, I didn't mean that to sound the wrong way. I almost
spit my coffee out. Are they?
Well, according to my notes, they are. Because as we're doing it, I always take notes. I mean, it's a learning experience for me. And if you just listen to like what Dr. John or Karen or Claudia or, any of our guests that we've had on, there's just pearls of wisdom that they lay out there that has just helped me immensely over the years. So I don't know who's helped from Sober.Coffee, but I am.
So let me be fully transparent with you.
Yeah.
So I love doing these coffees, but I'm learning a lesson. So there are times I go back and re-listen to them. And what I have found is that, like you say some things that I never hear in real time.
Right. Likewise.
And I must be like trying to think of what I'm going to say next, or I might be looking at my notes, or I might be, drinking my coffee, Right. But it's just amazing how much I miss. So I've started to put that into, like, my life, right? Like my family discussions.
Right. How much do we miss there?
Yeah. How much am I missing?
Right.
Because, first of all, you're a funny dude. And there's so much that I miss.
I crack my wife up.
And so much meat, that I'm sitting there saying, maybe I just need, in life, I need to slow down a little bit and just pay attention more.
Or just walk around, record people, and then just re-listen to them.
That takes a lot of time. I think you're better off just listening.
Just listening the first time?
So here's a funny thing. I have a concert coming up. I'm going to see The Cure. Right?
Oh, nice.
And so, now I got with these iPhones, right? In the moment, I think this is so special. I need to record it, right? And, last summer I saw Blue October, and I have so many pictures and so many recordings from that show, right? Do you know how many times I've gone back and listened to those recordings?
Like, no.
0.
Nice.
But they ruined the moment. So when I go to The Cure, I am not going to
You're not going to hold the camera up.
I'm not going to pull my phone out at all.
You're just going to enjoy the experience.
I am going to live in the moment and suck it all in. And, I mean, I don't know why I did that, man. I literally took like 50 pictures and 50 videos and not listened to a single one of them.
Well, let's
I ruined the moment.
Let's unpack that for the next half hour here. Okay? Living in the moment.
Well, are we changing gears?
Yeah, we are.
All right.
Because I love that topic. I mean, just living in the moment, again, coming off of Dr. John's, and if you haven't gone, go back and listen to him. But here's a guy who had 15 years of sobriety, and he went off the rails in a very methodical, educated, intellectual approach.
He doesn't refer to it as that. He says, "Oh, I did a little research sabbatical."
Right?
I'm like,
exactly.
Yeah, it's called a relapse.
Yeah, my wife would call that a divorce. The thing is that I'm learning so many lessons, but that doesn't mean that I'm smarter than I was. If that makes any sense at all, I'm not. I feel like I've got a lot more to learn, and so much of Mike in 2023 here is about the learning opportunity, and so less about Mike is about the teaching opportunity.
So if you don't live the lessons, if you don't live the learnings, it's merely data. It's merely information.
Right. But the thing is, like I don't know when I'm going to live your advice to me, right? You give me a lot of suggestions in my life. How you doing, Mike? And I'll tell you 3 or 4 things that are going on in my life. Then you say, hey, have you thought about doing this? You want to join us here? You want to do this? And, I don't take it and run with all 5 suggestions. I can't take this compilation of everything that everyone is throwing at my brain and then roll those out on a daily basis. But they come to me when I need them.
Yeah, so I just wrote down the word library because I totally agree. I've been to quite a number of meetings the last 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. And I do listen mostly. And like there's a guy call him Big Bill. He rolled off years ago. He rolled off all situations he was going with his stepson. And I listened to him, right? I listened to the stories. I listened to the solutions, the challenges and solutions. And hey, I didn't have a stepson, right? Didn't relate to my life at all, right? But I heard the stories. I empathized with them. I engaged, right? I was living in the moment. And then I became a stepfather, right? Stepdad. And now all of a sudden, I'm having the exact situations with my stepson that he went through 8 years or 10 years earlier. Right? So now it's amazing the library of tools that I have or references I can go back to. And I can remember, hey, Big Bill went through that, and here's what he did. So now I'm like, okay, Glenn's going through that. Here's what I'm going to do. Right? So it's a library of resources. Not only is our website full of resources, thank you for that, but just going through meetings, you get a library of resources that are just.
But I guess here's
important.
And here's my point. There's a lot of them aren't written. You've just got them in your head. My daughter and I Rachel and I always joke, and she'll say she's raising a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old now, right? Which I did 4 times. I raised a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and she says. And I'll holler from she'll be saying something to one of the kids, giving them a life learning lesson, and then she gets stumped, and I'll say, page 932, honey, it's in the manual. Page 1216.
Right.
We joke that there's some written manual to parenting, but there's no written manual to being sober either. And so I've had too much caffeine this morning, but let me jump to the program, right? Because it's going to come up again. I think we say it just about every, it's working the program. It's doing this. And you said it a couple of weeks ago, what does that really mean to work the program? And I remember I shared at that time that when I was early on in the program, and you'd go to a meeting and everyone's just like, yep, I worked the program, things are great. Worked the program, things are great. Yeah, I had a challenge, I worked the program, things worked out, but no one would give me the detail on what the work in the program was, right? And so, but if you listen to people's stories, you get those page 932 pieces of information. If you just listen,
it's amazing.
Yes, and engage with people.
It's life changing. But going back to living in the moment, I joke about it. There's a real story, but I think it's ridiculous. I remember going to 2 years worth of meetings, and I was in this meeting and I heard the promises, and I turned to the guy next to me and I'm like, man,
yeah, right.
Man, they're great. When they start reading those, the guy looks at me and goes, Glenn, they read them at the end of every meeting that you've been at for 2 years. And I wasn't living in the moment. Right. I wasn't focused. I wasn't paying attention. Normally, early on, my meetings were this. I was trying to paint the prettiest picture of myself, right? So when you come in the meeting, you say hi to everybody, right? I was trying to portray how great Glenn was doing, even though Glenn wasn't doing great. So that was part one of the meetings. And then I sit there and I listen to the readings, whatever, and the whole time I'd be assessing who was in the room, who I wanted to impress, and I was trying to figure out early on what I was going to say that would be impressive, right? That would prove that I was doing great to everybody. And it was funny. There's a guy in the room, Tap Tap Don. I call him Tap Tap Don because he taps his knee. So my perception was, every time he taps his knee, like I'm saying something profound or somebody's saying something profound. So my goal was to come up with something very profound when I was speaking.
Tap, tap, time with tap, tap,
Tap, tap, time with tap, tap. Mm-hmm. So the whole time, I'm not listening or absorbing or putting anything in my mental library, right? All I'm trying to do is impress in the moment, and it would come time for me to speak, and I would speak, and I get to tap, tap, right? I'm like, oh, that's good. And then, and then I mentally checked out. I was thinking about what I was going to do the rest of the day. I was thinking about
because you earned your tap.
Yeah, right. And then I leave. That was years of meetings doing that. Going back 15 years ago. But it's funny because I actually connected with him since, and I said, yeah. I told him, I said, hey, I call you Tap Tap Don. He goes, why's that? I said, well, every time you hear something profound, you like tap tap. Your leg or your knee and he says, looks at me very sincerely, says, Glenn, you're right, I do that. I know I do that. He said, but I wanted to give you something. He goes, I not only do it when I hear something profound, I do it when I hear bullshit.
Wow.
And I was like, crap, that's probably most of the way.
That was me.
Yeah, right.
I'm in the room.
He busted me, man. It was so funny how this shit works.
Living in the moment, what just painted a picture painted for me was, because I think you're right. For years, I was the guy on stage. I would walk into the room and it would be all about me, right? Instead of listening to other people, making it all about them. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Somewhere along this recovery road, it's become less about me and my story and more about listening to other people's stories. And sometimes it's not a learning opportunity. Sometimes it's just a relation build moment that will lead to a learning moment, right? It's just a relationship building moment. And I think I missed out on a lot of those opportunities over the years, and I try not to now. I fail. If somebody wants to hear my story, I'll tell them my story for whatever value it has in it. But most people want to be heard, right? Most people want to be heard.
They love connection, yeah. And so living in the moment, in fact, I apologize. I wasn't really living in the moment as you were speaking. I thought there was a song by a group called Lifehouse called "Living in the Moment."
There could be, yeah.
But I couldn't find it readily available. But I'm learning lessons through life. I'm almost 60, and yet I'm probably learning more now than I learned in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. For years in business, I love the word multitasking, and I always took pride. Hey, I can do 7 things at once. I can do 10 things at once. I'm a multitasker, I'm blah, 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 blah. And I'm learning now with data that multitasking is not good. You do not, or let me put it this way, you do not get your best work product, best connection in relationships, best whatever, if you're multitasking. Your brain can do one function at a time. And if you're trying to spread it out, you're not doing as good on that one task.
So you can only be 100%. You can only be 100%. You can't be more than 100%. So if I'm 90%, if I'm 90% paying attention to you and 10% thinking about what I'm going to say, then I'm not giving you my all.
Or if I'm 10% listening to you and 90% listening to what I'm going to say.
Right.
And hey, I get it's a podcast. You don't want dead air of reflection or whatever. I get it, but no, I think that's something to be very aware about. And I'm starting to, a lot of my conversations, in business, I got a lot going on, right? And sometimes I'm in an hour meeting, and I know it's going to be an hour meeting, but I got 6 different details that I got to attend to in that hour because I need to be 2 places at once, right? So I'm always looking at my phone, and if something comes up, I might need like one text because I got to transact, some financial stuff during that hour meeting, I'm distracted for the entire hour.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think I'm effective or whatever, but I'm not as effective if I just put my phone down. But, I mean, I have a phone issue. I mean, it hits my dopamine, and they're built that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, social media
is
built to bring you back.
Yeah. It's as it relates to sobriety.
I was going to say, I have no idea what this has to do with sobriety.
I'll tell you, it has everything to do with sobriety.
You're going to land a plane.
It has everything to do with sobriety because if we're not full focused on sobriety, right, and the extent that we dilute our focus off of the sobriety, I don't care how much knowledge, I don't care how many bullet points I get or kernels of knowledge or pearls of wisdom or conversations or relationship builders, all the stuff we just talked about. If I'm not full focused on my sobriety right now intensely throughout the course of my day, I get none of these moments of life of which you speak. I don't get the moments of joy. It's not going to happen to me if I'm not full focused. And so living in the moment, I need to pay attention to my wife when when we're on the deck. But I also know that when I'm on the deck talking to my wife and she's talking to me and I get an irrational thought about having a nice drink at that moment, I've got to deal with that thought first. And she might be right in the middle of telling me she's got an ingrown toenail or a tumor or a situation at work. I have no idea. I've got to focus on sobriety. It's got to be my first and foremost living in the moment. I've got to be on guard.
So one of the things that helps me live in the moment is page 86 of the big book, right? Upon awakening. Mm-hmm. Prepare for your day.
Right.
And then my morning meditation, right? So my morning meditation, I get up early just like you do, whatever time, 4 or 5.
And that sets the tone.
Yeah, if I wake up at 5, I slept in. And I spend 30 to 45 minutes mostly in meditation. Mm-hmm. That's prayer, that's music, that's readings, that's listening, and that's getting me, that's YouTube, that's getting me in the mental preparedness, right? Getting outside of Glenn
for the day,
looking at what I'm going to do, gratitude. I mean that's where I get my spiritual food, my motivation, my drive, getting a serving mentality. All happens,
How many times during the day do you tap back into that experience, that particular day's morning experience? So you're done with your morning meditation. Now you're in a business meeting, and you're going in between from one meeting into another meeting. How many times do you tap back into that time? Do you go, that's my base?
So, all right, that's a great question. So my days typically, from a business standpoint, start at 7 and probably go to 7. Mm-hmm. And the way my days are set up, it is one thing after another. It
sure,
is
you're going back to back to back.
Once it's in gear,
right.
It's in fifth gear, right? But it's interesting because what I relate to is what I tap into throughout the day. I don't have a lot of time to sit back and reflect, and
sure,
because I'm in gear.
Because you're going back to back.
But here's what I tap into. One is gratitude, right? Because when I'm going through shit in the middle of the day, because sometimes that happens, the WTF moments, I brought back to gratitude because I know, hey, this is just, part of the process, right? Everybody goes through shit. Not everything is perfect, right? And these are mantras that I understand in my morning meditation. I remind myself of the first wheel. There's not a day that goes by I don't remind myself of the first wheel. Sometimes I'm on top. Sometimes I'm down, smelling the fumes, looking at the trash. Mm-hmm. It's going to change. Mm-hmm. And I'm amazed at how fast it changes, right. How that first wheel, spins. Secondly is I tap into, my superpowers through the day. And I have two superpowers. One is my sobriety, and the second is my spirituality. There are times that I pray through the day. There's never a day anymore that I don't pray through the day. Sometimes it's, hey man, thanks for giving me the talent to get through that situation. Sometimes it's, hey man, I got a big meeting, come with me, right? Sometimes it's, hey, thanks. Sometimes, hey man, this is a cool place where I live. This is a cool life. So it's going back to that gratitude. But there's some things that help me stay in the moment, that help me stay grounded. And then I do page 86, upon retiring at night. At night, reflect on your day. And what I learned through page 86 of the big book is that if I'm going to live the program, right, when you say work the program, if I'm going to work the program, I'm going to do page 86. I'm going to do what it tells me to do. And at night, I'm going to tell on myself, hey, I shouldn't have said that. I should have treated that person differently. I need to make amends for that. I need to say I'm sorry, right? What I've learned over time is that if I'm going to do that and I commit to myself I am and I do, then I change my behavior. What I've learned over time is now I've changed my behavior and I don't act as badly as I did because I'm going to tell myself anyhow.
That's right. You know what's coming.
Right. I know it's coming, and it's easier for me not to say that slanted line to my wife because I'm just going to apologize for it later. Right. And so it helps me change the way I live.
The other thing that's helped me change the way I live is working the program, the fourth step, right? So there's actually doing the fourth step of a 12-step recovery, is taking the moral and searching a fearless moral inventory of oneself, right? And that inventory I find myself doing during the day, Glenn. When I have a resentment coming up, I feel I'm afraid of something, or I get, more importantly, a resentment. Somebody does wrong to me. I begin to put that out in a horizontal line in my head that kind of walks me through, why is that affecting me, right? So I'm doing a fourth step as it comes up. I'm beginning to lay that out. And then I do a fifth step when I touch base with my sponsor, and he actually does the fifth step for me, because the first thing my sponsor asks me when I pick up the phone with him, any new resentments? Because resentment is the number one cause, or the number one danger for an alcoholic, right? And a big cause for relapse, right? So do I have any new resentments? That page 86 inventory, taking it at night, stopping and saying, do I have anything new? So that something doesn't fester and build up into a relapse. You just pull the weed out when its root is only an inch deep, instead of waiting for it to grow 3 inches deep and 3 feet wide.
Yeah, so I like how you put that, and that reminds me of my weight, right? Over the years, every time I slandered somebody, I didn't have a way to clean the weight off my shoulders. So it just added up, right. added up. And then I used booze as a way to escape. So today I do it daily.
Right. Bookends.
Yeah.
Page 86, upon awakening and upon retiring.
Retiring at night. I mean, that helps me keep my, and then I live better through the day. I live better in the moment through the day. And I don't add stuff up. I mean, I'm very aware today of where I'm at. I'm very aware where to walk, where not to walk. I'm very aware. For example, we chatted in the parking lot this morning. I have a situation and building resentments. And what we talk about is I can't fix that.
Right.
I can't fix that person. Right.
What you can do is manage your expectations. Right.
I can fix me. And what I realized for 2 days, I've been going sideways for 2 days, and situations just cranking me. And what I attribute it to is, and that's that emotional relapse, right? That's that, emotional, then mental, then physical relapse. Yeah, I've been living the last 2 days in the emotional relapse because of my ego. because of my ego, and that fed for 2 days. And it's funny because when you say, well, work in the program, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
What it means is living in the solution. And what that means is staying connected with people who have the solution. So I talked to you. We had a guest earlier, and sit through him.
Other people in the program.
I remember what Big Bill says, and now all of a sudden, I'm going to walk out of here with a different mentality, a different approach, a different, a reset.
But that's because you lived in the moment.
Yep.
That's because you lived in the moment. I think this was good to chat about living in the moment. I love, what one of my big takeaways is going back to that gratitude thing, that being thankful, bitching about a job and stopping and just for a moment being grateful that I have the job that at my core I love. So yeah, it's not always going to be a bowl of cherries, but but being thankful that I have the job, being thankful that I've got the whatever, the car's not running great. I got a repair bill coming up, but I'm grateful I have a car, grateful I have my license. I'm grateful I'm not dead. I'm grateful for a lot of things.
Yeah, there's something I heard this week, and I've heard it off and on now. It's amazing. I mean, I probably heard it for 6 years, but I'm hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not just listening, is, sometimes or all the time, you're one decision away from a new life, a great life,
mm-hmm.
a different life.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, that one decision could be, hey, I'm going to start going to AA. I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to work the program of Alcoholics Anonymous the way it's supposed to be. One decision may be, I'm going to get a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
One decision may be, hey, you know what? Maybe alcohol isn't working for me. Maybe I'm going to stop drinking.
Right, maybe I'll find out about this program they talk about.
Yeah,
right?
that could be one decision, and it could be for any area of your life.
Right.
But I've got a guy I'm working with, and he's really good, and we're really focusing on the first 5 minutes. So what I have found in my life today, and again, I'm always trying to sharpen my pencil, is I'm sitting in my chair and I've got 10 things to do, right? Or let's say I have one task that I've got to get started on. It's that first 5 minutes from getting out of my chair to my desk chair to whatever I'm going to do is where my head trash screams the loudest.
Sure, absolutely. I see that.
It's like, hey, you can do that later.
Yep, that's right.
You don't need to do that.
It's a big project. You're going to need time. You need a better folder.
You need a new
notebook.
pen.
Yeah, right.
You got to start with a new. I mean, it's that first 5 minutes, and what we're working on is when you're only talking about 5 minutes. When I conquer that 5 minutes and I get out of my chair and in where I'm supposed to be to do that next task, once I'm in the next chair, it's amazing how that head trash goes away. Right? But it's that 5 minutes of transitioning from comfort to hard.
Man, I totally relate to that.
In fact, I'm just going to write that down because it just clicked for me that's what the 5 minute transition is from comfort or easy to hard.
Right.
Because I think we're programmed as cavemen, cavewomen,
softer,
to be
easier way.
Easy.
Yeah. Looking for the softer, easier way.
Store up. Don't work so hard. Right. But the transition from comfort to hard.
Yep.
Pick your heart.
Yep. Love it, man. Hey,
brother,
come back and do this again next week.
You. Yeah, absolutely. Man.
All right, man.
Always do.
All right, talk to you.
All right, see you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.